The next chapter of the MonsterVerse might be bigger than anything we've seen before. For years, Legendary has been slowly expanding Godzilla's world from ancient titans buried beneath the earth into something much larger. But now the franchise appears to be approaching the point where the monsters don't just rule the planet anymore. They might be heading beyond it, and if the rumors are true, Godzilla 3 could become the movie where everything finally comes together. The title that has insiders talking the most is Destroy All Monsters. Warner Brothers quietly registered that name back in 2023, and while that doesn't confirm anything by itself, the timing is interesting. After Godzilla x Kong Supernova, the MonsterVerse could be perfectly positioned for a story inspired by one of the biggest Toho events ever created. The original Destroy All Monsters from the 60s was basically the first giant monster crossover movie. It brought together Godzilla, Mothra, Ghidorah, and other iconic creatures for one massive battle. It was the kind of idea that felt impossible at the time, a full cinematic universe of monsters decades before that became the standard, and now the MonsterVerse has spent years building towards something similar. But before we get into what Godzilla 3 could actually be about, we need to look at where this universe currently stands and why the next movie could change everything. The MonsterVerse started as a risky experiment, a new Godzilla movie in 2014, followed by Kong, then a full crossover. A lot of people wondered if audiences would really care about giant monsters in a modern cinematic universe. Godzilla vs. Kong and the New Empire showed that this world still has a massive audience. Producer Mary Parent has talked about the excitement behind continuing to expand this universe, explaining that these movies are huge productions, but the scale is also what attracts audiences. The bigger the mythology becomes, the more possibilities open up, and that's exactly where Godzilla's story becomes interesting. The New Empire was mostly Kong's movie. It gave him one of the most complete character arcs in the entire franchise. Kong finally found a place where he belonged, discovered other giant apes, became a leader, and even took on a younger companion in Zuko. His journey felt like a full transformation. Godzilla, however, ended that movie in a completely different place. He became stronger, evolved into a new form, and fully accepted his role as the protector of Earth. But unlike Kong, his story still feels unfinished. For years, Godzilla was portrayed as a force of nature, something humanity feared because they didn't understand him. But the MonsterVerse has slowly changed that idea. He is no longer just a monster that appears when the world is in danger. He is becoming something closer to a guardian, a creature that has existed for thousands, maybe millions of years, and has been connected to the planet long before humans ever appeared. That evolution is important because it changes what a third Godzilla movie could actually explore. Director Adam Wingard has also mentioned that he would like future MonsterVerse stories to focus more on Godzilla. After giving Kong such a strong emotional storyline, the natural next move would be returning the spotlight to the king of the monsters, and that leads directly into Supernova. The upcoming threequel is expected to push the franchise into completely new territory. Instead of only exploring the Hollow Earth, the story appears to be moving toward cosmic mythology. That makes a lot of sense when you look at Godzilla's arc. The Toho movies have explored alien civilizations, space monsters, cosmic energy, and creatures that come from beyond Earth. Some of Godzilla's most famous enemies were never from this planet. The MonsterVerse has barely touched that side of the mythology. Supernova could finally open that door. The biggest leak surrounding the movie is the introduction of Space Godzilla as the main villain. Nothing has been officially confirmed, but the idea fits almost too perfectly. Space Godzilla is one of the most unique enemies in Godzilla history because he isn't just another giant monster. He is basically a twisted reflection of Godzilla himself. In the classic Toho version, one popular explanation is that Godzilla's cells were somehow transformed by cosmic forces, creating a creature with the same origins but a completely different purpose. He represents what Godzilla could become if his power was corrupted. And that is a fascinating conflict for the MonsterVerse because this universe has spent years building Godzilla as Earth's protector. Another reason Space Godzilla makes sense is the visual direction. The character is famous for his crystal structures and cosmic energy, and early fan discussions around Supernova have focused heavily on strange crystalline imagery and space-based threats. The challenge will be making that concept work in a grounded MonsterVerse style. The biggest criticism of the New Empire from some fans was that it leaned heavily into spectacle. The movie was colorful, energetic, and very much inspired by classic monster adventures, but some viewers felt the Titans lost some of the overwhelming realism they had in earlier films. The first Godzilla from 2014 made these creatures feel like natural disasters walking across the planet. Supernova seems like it could try to find a middle ground, not as dark and realistic as Gareth Edwards' movie, but still treating these creatures like enormous world-changing beings. Because a cosmic invasion only works if it feels like a real threat. And if Supernova really becomes the end of the Godzilla and Kong crossover trilogy, it would make sense for it to leave the door open for something even bigger. The biggest reason why a movie like Destroy All Monsters would make sense for the MonsterVerse is because the franchise has already been quietly building toward the same idea that made the original Toho movie so special. These creatures are not just random monsters appearing for action scenes anymore. They are ancient beings with their own history, their own connections, and possibly a role in the balance of the entire planet. The Hollow Earth completely changed the mythology of this universe. Before that, Godzilla and the Titans were treated almost like unexplained natural disasters. They appeared, disappeared, and humanity could only react to them. But after exploring the underground world, the MonsterVerse revealed that these creatures existed long before humans, and that there was an entire ecosystem built around them. That opens the door for a much bigger story. Because if Titans existed before humanity, there is always the possibility that there are things even older than them. A lot of people forget that some of the biggest threats Godzilla has ever faced did not come from Earth. His history is filled with alien civilizations, space creatures, and enemies that represent something beyond a simple monster attack. The MonsterVerse has spent years adapting the grounded side of Godzilla, focusing on ancient creatures and planetary balance, but the introduction of a character like Space Godzilla would completely change the scale of the franchise. It would basically take the story from a battle for Earth and turn it into a battle for the entire future of the planet. For years, Monarch has tried to prove that Titans and humans can exist together. They studied them, tracked them, and slowly discovered that these creatures were not simply enemies. But after enough destruction, many governments would naturally start asking a dangerous question. That conflict could become the foundation of Godzilla 3. A possible Destroy All Monsters storyline could show humanity making a desperate decision after the events of Supernova. Instead of continuing to allow Titans to roam freely, world leaders could attempt to remove them from Earth completely. Not because they hate them, but because they are terrified of what happens every time these giants clash. Using technology recovered from previous Titan research or even from the remains of a cosmic enemy, humanity could create a new containment system. Maybe the plan involves sending the Titans away from Earth, creating an artificial environment somewhere outside the planet, or placing them in a massive facility where they can no longer threaten civilization. On paper, it sounds like the perfect solution. The problem is that in the MonsterVerse, humans constantly underestimate forces that are much older and more powerful than themselves. If the same cosmic influence that created Space Godzilla is still active, then moving all the Titans into one location would actually make them easier to control. This is where the original Destroy All Monsters concept could be modernized. The original Toho movie had a simple concept. Humanity had finally found a way to control the giant monsters and keep them contained. But an alien force known as the Kallax took control of the creatures and used them as weapons against Earth. The monsters attacked major cities around the world, and the only way humanity survived was by letting the Titans fight back against their alien masters. It was basically the first huge cinematic monster team-up. The MonsterVerse version could obviously change a lot. Instead of simply repeating the old story, it could connect directly to everything that came before. Imagine a world after Supernova where Earth has survived a cosmic attack. Humanity has seen what happens when forces beyond the planet interfere with the Titans, and suddenly the same creatures that saved the world become something governments fear. Instead of the Kallax simply controlling monsters with alien technology, the MonsterVerse could introduce something more connected to its own mythology. A cosmic intelligence, an ancient species, or a force that sees Titans as tools rather than living beings. The monsters would not become villains because they suddenly turn evil. They would become weapons. Godzilla's arc has been different. He has never been interested in ruling humans or building a kingdom. His purpose is maintaining balance. He exists because the world needs something powerful enough to stop threats that no one else can handle. That is why a future movie involving a massive Titan war would have to revolve around him. Because if every monster in the world becomes a threat, Godzilla is the one creature that understands what is actually happening. And this is where Destoroyah enters the conversation. Out of every classic Toho villain, Destoroyah might be the perfect opponent for the MonsterVerse version of Godzilla because his entire existence is connected to one of the biggest themes in the franchise. In the original story, he was born after the Oxygen Destroyer was used against Godzilla. That weapon was designed to eliminate a monster, but instead it created something even more terrifying. Destoroyah became the ultimate example of consequences. He represented the idea that humans can develop weapons powerful enough to defeat their enemies, but they may never fully understand what what those weapons can create. That idea fits the monsterverse better than almost any other villain. This universe already showed humanity trying to control Titans with technology. The creation of Mechagodzilla was basically a warning about what happens when people believe they can replace or dominate nature. Destoroyah could take that idea to the next level. Instead of being created from the Oxygen Destroyer, the Monsterverse version could emerge from a combination of human experimentation, Titan biology, and the energy left behind after a cosmic event. If supernova involves powerful alien energy or a massive transformation of the planet, that could accidentally create the perfect conditions for a new threat. If supernova succeeds, the chances of another Godzilla-centered movie become much higher. And after everything this universe has built, the next Godzilla story has the potential to be the biggest one yet.